high performance. My name is Laura McNeil. I am a 20-year master examiner. And before we get started, I'd just like to throw out a couple of reminders. Before we started the video, I started to say, keep an eye on that chat window. We do put a link to our free downloadable Sterling resource guide in that chat window. Feel free to download that guide. It's quite helpful. And it would be a great supplement to the series sessions that we are presenting. Presentations will be loaded up to YouTube in about 24 hours. The link to the YouTube is accessible on the sterlingcouncil.org website. Again, that's the Sterling Council, all one word, .org website. During the presentation, just a reminder, feel free to post any questions you may have also in the chat window. We will be pulling the questions in for a Q&A after the series session. Before we start with the Q&A, we will, I'll go over my summary points from today's discussion, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So today's session actually features a great friend of mine and a great collaborator and an amazing subject matter expert on the Sterling criteria. Debbie Vass is a Sterling Master Examiner, Corporate VP of Quality Initiatives, Patient Care, EMS Solutions at Sunstar Paramedics. And Debbie will be briefing us on role model customer focus. Debbie, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Laura. I'm really happy to be here to talk about the process category for customer, and hopefully we can demystify some of the criteria here for you. If you've been joining us for the series, this should look familiar to you, the Sterling Management Framework, and you can see where customer pretty much is rounding out the leadership triad. So this is basically where we focus on building lasting customer relationships. So customers are really the purpose of your organization, right? Without them, where would we be? They're the end user of your service or product. They're those who must be satisfied for the organization to achieve results and be successful. And if you're in not-for-profit, you know, a customer can be viewed as the person whose life is changed through your work. The customer criteria is broken down into two main parts. The first one is customer expectations. The second is customer experience and engagement. So we're going to start off with the customer expectations. The first process here is customer listening methods. So when we talk about listening methods, we're thinking about all those things that we consider the voice of the
Oh no, if you just go into
customer.
Hold on.
Maybe we could.
If you just go into the.
I'm going to pause for a moment. So the first process of customer expectations is customer listening methods. So when we talk about this, we're talking about all the voice of the customer methods that we have, not just for our current customers, but also for potential and for our competitors' customers. And we want to also use this through the whole full life cycle of a customer. And when you hear the word life cycle, what we're talking about are all those touch points with your customer. So think about the journey your customer has with your organization that starts even before they become a customer, where they're just becoming aware of you and they're evaluating you. And then how your methods seek immediate feedback, not just that information that we look at in a month or a quarterly, but how we're doing it and seeking it immediately so that we can act on it. Some examples of these types of listening methods, you know, surveys are very popular, using social media. Not people get out enough to do observation. That's really a good way to listen to your customer and see their pain points. And then, you know, buying trends and website traffic are also methods that can be utilized. So the second part is about determining your customer segmentation and your product offerings and understanding the expectations. So if you remember in the profile, key customers and their requirements were defined. So this is the part where we talk about how you got there. What was the process you used to determine those key groups and their requirements? And then how do you take that information on customers and requirements and then learn from that, adapt them, and anticipate future needs? And then how do you adapt your service or products to attract new customers and expand your relationships? So this piece about the customer and market segmentation is really about trying to get to know your customers better. If we have a large customer group, it's hard to understand them. But if we can group them and segment them by commonalities, it helps us to understand their expectations better. And some of the methods to do that are by demographics, the behaviors, common location, common purchasing habits, even the emotions and attitudes that influence their buying patterns. And this is important because it really helps you hone in on your ideal customer. Who do you want to focus your efforts on? Who do you want to go out and expand your market into? And really understanding current and future requirements and expectations. So that was the first part, customer expectations. Now we're getting into customer experience. So we talked about breaking up our customer groups and then understanding their expectations. So now this is about how we have building and managing relationships and the whole customer experience to achieve that engagement. So that includes how we acquire and retain our customers, enhance our brand through those relationships. It's how we provide access and support to our customers when things don't go right, how we handle complaints and having a process to specifically manage complaints and learn from them and resolve them promptly. And then also making sure that our processes are fair for all groups so that we don't inadvertently discriminate unfairly or inappropriately. So some of the customer relationship type examples where we kind of come in contact and reach out to our customers, these are just typical ways that people do this, billboards and social media, even those spinning signs on the side of the road catch our attention and may attract us to some type of organization. So we're not always going to nail it every time with our products and services. So one of the parts of this criteria is about service recovery and providing support and access to our customer. So the intent here is to make it easy for customers to reach out to us and tell us that we didn't meet their expectations and that they're experiencing a issue with their product or service and how we can quickly resolve that. As far as complaints go, I really like this quote by Bill Gates: "Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning." Whenever we hear the word complaint, everybody thinks it's a bad thing. And I think that we need to turn it into a positive. Every time we get a complaint, it's an opportunity for us to recognize where we need to improve. So the two key points here are ensuring that you have a process for complaint management, a system that includes logging all written, verbal, and electronic feedback so that you can take it and aggregate it, summarize it, and look for those common themes and trends that you can use to prevent future occurrences of similar complaints. The other thing is, looking at these complaints can also help you identify and confirm requirements of your current customers or maybe new customers. The other key point of your complaint management process is to ensure that your complaints are resolved promptly and effectively. And this might involve developing a playbook for your customer contact employees that would include your customer service requirements and standards and procedures. So we learn from the customer what's expected. It's really important for the folks that are dealing directly with your customer to know what those expectations are so they can make sure that they're meeting them. So the second part, which is the fourth process in the customer engagement, is determining your customer satisfaction engagement. not only within your organization, but also looking outside your organization to see how you're comparing. It gives you some sort of reference point of how you're doing. So to this point, we covered our customer groups and their expectations, and we identified that through all those voice of the customer methods, and those included, you see our surveys and complaints. But now is when we ask the question, how are we doing at meeting those expectations of the customer? Are our methods working? So I wanted to mention, customer, not only does it have its own category, but it has also results category. And so therefore your specific customer measurements of satisfaction, engagement, and dissatisfaction may be tied to how you determine each. So for example, satisfaction is often viewed as a percentage of agree and strongly agree responses on your survey questions. Engagement is often viewed as a percentage of only strongly agree or top box responses on your survey. But customer satisfaction isn't just survey of opinions. It's also can be determined by your buying and usage behavior. So some examples of those would be looking at, customer retention, average revenue per key customer, number of customers, graduation rate, subscription membership renewal rates. Those type of things can also help you determine customer satisfaction or engagement. When it comes to dissatisfaction, it's not necessarily the inverse of satisfaction, but typically when people are dissatisfied, it's because you didn't meet their expectation. And common areas of those are customer service, the quality, the pricing, or the performance of your service or product. But examples of non-survey indicators of dissatisfied customers would be, of course, they want a refund, they're returning an item, they're making negative comments, and you can use rate of negative comments received per 1,000 patient days as an example. So looking at that, and just like complaints, the process with dissatisfied customers should include looking at the root cause to improve and avoid future dissatisfactions among your customers. So we talk about in this section about how your satisfaction results compare to others. We're talking about, maybe your competitors, similar organizations, and industry benchmarks. Why do we do this? Well, it gives you a reference point to help you set some targets. It lets you know if you're competitive, and it can actually be a catalyst for innovation. If you see the gap between how you're performing and how others are performing, this might put a little bit of fire under you and get you moving into the innovation gear instead of just the improvement gear. The last piece of customer engagement is using the voice of the customer. This is really about putting it all together. You're taking all of the feedback that you've received from your customers. So remember, you've had them segmented into groups. You've learned their expectations, and you've gained that from complaints and information from your social media, surveys, market analysis. And now you're taking it and you're infusing it and integrating it into your entire organization. And one of the biggest things for me, it was like aha for me, is when we design our processes, I think we have a tendency to look inside to do that. But if the customer's expectation is to be timely, accurate, and clean, then what are we doing when we design a process to ensure that it's timely, accurate, and clean? So that's the piece there. Identifying and adapting your service to meet or exceed expectations is based on using this voice of the customer. Using that voice of the customer and understanding expectations at each point of your life cycle helps you also determine, like, when they need help in that customer support area, what are their expectations related to that, and how are we training and educating our employees on what those expectations are so that they can make sure that they're met. And then, ultimately using this information to acquire new customers, retain the ones you have, enhance your brand, and ultimately you're creating the culture for customer service excellence. So just quick summary, really important to know your customer. If you don't, you're not going to really understand their expectations, and you're not going to have those engaged customers that you want. Your processes should include the methods to listen to your customer and learn throughout the full life cycle of a customer at all touch points. You need to make sure that your processes include supporting your customer, all segments and types of customers that you have. Using the information on customers and the service product offerings to improve. So having those cycles of improvement and learning and adapting. Your processes should include those managing the complaints and making sure that you're including a focus on avoiding similar complaints in the future. And then lastly, assessing how you're doing in meeting or exceeding customer requirements. So they've basically given you the answers to the test questions, and how are you doing now on meeting those requirements. So, and we do that, we can do that through results. So with that, I appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful, and I will turn it back over to Laura for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That was really very insightful. You kept me typing throughout the whole thing. So very, very good. I loved your graphics. Great presentation. Let me go through the summary notes that I did jot down. Customer-focused excellence is a core value in the Sterling framework, as well as a key requirement in an organization's profile. Not everyone is your customer. And I put that one in bold in my summary notes because that is a really big thing I think we need to key in on. Understanding what's out of scope, understanding who's not your customer really helps us get a little more laser focused on who our customers are. So I really like that point that you made. Customer is who is impacted by the product or the service that is produced by your organization. So understanding who is impacted by the products and services produced is key. Focus on identifying your customer groups and your market segments. Each stage of the customer life cycle will need to be assessed to fully understand the needs of your customers and the customer expectations at each stage. Customer listening methods also help to understand evolving needs and trends. And by the way, I didn't put this in the summary notes, but I loved your visual on understanding where your competitors are and where you are in relation to the competitors and what the competitors are focusing on. I think that's really key in order to understand on how to innovate best to make sure that you're caring for customer expectations. Segmentation techniques include understanding customer demographics, product and service user groupings. Again, the customer life cycle and engagement routines play into that as well for segmentation techniques. Customer engagement includes building and managing relationships, establishing customer access and support, complaint management, and ensuring you have a fair, balanced, and equal treatment of all customers. Interaction with customers that promote customer engagement can include, and you had a whole slide on this, email, social media, text messaging, billboards, spinning signs. I like the spinning signs, and more, right? However, the key that you called out, Debbie, was that make sure that whatever you're using is an easy experience for the customer to leverage. Most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning and opportunity. That was another one I really loved, and I'm going to put that one right now in bold and italics. Really, sometimes what we think is a negative can turn out to be our best positive. And I don't know if I paraphrased you exactly, but I think that was your point there. And then measurements and metrics should be used to understand how you are meeting your customers' expectations. And it should be used to refine your customer focus and improve satisfaction and engagement successes going forward. Did I miss anything? Did I get anything wrong? Anything you would like to clarify?
No, as usual, you were very thorough in capturing the notes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right, well, let's go ahead and transition into Q&A. I do have a question teed up at the moment. The question that's coming in is, how do you identify when a customer is dissatisfied? What's the best method for doing that?
Well, they don't always come out and tell you, right? they may just not come back. Remember, the average business hears from only 4% of dissatisfied customers, and 91% don't come back. So you have to really dig into your voice of the customer data and look at your complaint types for key themes. Some of your big tells will be some of those more behavior-based measures, such as your customer return rates and market share.
That was a great answer. Love that answer. We just had another question raised. This one's a tricky one. There is developing discussion on customer-focused AI and ML, so artificial intelligence and machine learning, from a recently used perspective. Is there any learnings from avoiding customer bias that can be applied to artificial intelligence and machine learning? Traditionally, we would use focus groups, satisfaction surveys, and roundings, etc. So any thoughts on AI, ML, customer bias towards AI, ML?
I honestly am not first in that area, to be honest. I know that having any way of learning what you can do to improve customer experience is going to be beneficial. So if that's including machine learning or artificial intelligence, if it's making it easier, I think it's interesting about, I think customer bias is, I don't know enough to say on that, but I think that's partly what we're doing. And I would caution using too much automation, because sometimes you learn more just by going out and being the undercover boss, so to speak, and experiencing and not waiting for customers to tell you what they need, but going out and experiencing it for yourself to see what they need. I know that's probably not the greatest answer, but this was a tricky one.
Yeah, and if I could just add, the AI ML, I think one of our earliest examples of machine learning or machine language is like the IVR, right? The IVR isn't really a learning application for technology, but certainly the first, as AI ML, the whole purpose of AI ML is, as it sits in your production environment, it continuously learns and improves as it goes on. I think Debbie hit the nail on the head in her presentation when she said, you really need to be focused on those metrics and key performance indicators, the KPIs, because that will tell you, no matter what sort of strategy or what sort of innovation you are tackling, you'll see a drop off of customers, right? It kind of almost dovetails into the question we asked earlier about dissatisfaction. I brought up the IVR because I don't know if anyone on the call is like me. When I call someone and I get their IVR, I immediately get a little bit of a sense of annoyance, like, how long am I going to have to play this game? I have to push the right button to get the magic decoder ring to actually talk to someone, right? It can be very, very frustrating. Now, if they rolled out ML, machine learning, or artificial intelligence on the IVR, and every time they got a response, they could funnel you better, there might be a better experience further down the path. But the poor customers who had to suffer on the front end so that the technology could learn the patterns is where we're going. I think the short answer to that question, though, is keep your finger on the pulse of your metrics and your KPIs, whatever you denote them to be as critical, and see, hey, if we introduce some AI or ML into the system, we know that the beginning part of this is going to not be an optimal experience, but as it learns more, it'll get better. Keeping that, again, finger on the pulse of the metrics, I think, is key to that one. Yeah, that was a really good question. Thank you to Mark Stevens for asking that.
Do you have another question I might be able to answer?
Yes, I do. We're trying our best here. How do I know what to focus on first once I obtain information from customer segments and markets? How do I prioritize, in other words?
Yeah, that's a good question, because remember, the customer category is infused through your whole organization. So it should really be based on what your organization is trying to achieve. Customer-focused excellence is a strategic concept. So the customers you pursue or focus on should align to your mission, your vision, your strategic objectives, and the expectations and requirements of these customers should be a priority.
Very good. All right, last question that I've got in the queue right now. Is there additional guidance available that you might recommend?
Another good question. So like Roland stated in the overview session, there's a lot of books out there with various methods, but they're, the best practices, they're not systems. So what I recommend is I really feel like this criteria of this quality management system is the best guidance for creating your system to deliver customer service excellence. And once you've initiated those systems and processes for customer expectations and engagement, then I would go and look for best practices in the areas that you feel that you need to improve in. And where you go for that is you can go to prior Baldrige Award winners, and you can just Google Baldrige Award winners, and it will show you the winners, and you can click on them and you will find their applications are available online, and you can see how they interpreted things and how they do things in their organization related to customer. And then, there are a couple books that I could recommend. One is called Outside In by Harley Manning, and it's also co-authored by Carrie Bodine. And then a very different type of book for somebody who's more in the marketing and building a brand, and that is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And even if you're not that type of organization, I think there's some gold nuggets in there, even how you can brand your organization internally to your employees. You can probably find some nuggets there.
Very good. Well, thanks for all those tips. So with that, I guess we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks for joining us. I hope you join us in next week's session on Tuesday, September 27th at noon. We will feature Sterling Master Examiner Bob Medeiros. He is the CEO of Nature's Coast Quality Associates, LLC, along with Sterling Master Examiner Dr. Samson Golston, who is professor in the Industrial and Systems Engineering and Engineering Management Department at the University of Alabama. Two really stellar folks, subject matter experts in their own right. They will both, Bob and Dr. Golston, will focus on measurement, analysis, knowledge management, and organizational performance improvement. So it will be chock full of great insights and information. Thanks once again for joining today's presentation. I wish each and every one of you a very happy week ahead.